Hello. Well, hopefully by this point you've recognized that there is a link which takes you to printed lesson plans for each particular lesson. And in case you haven't seen that yet, I'll show you right now where it is. So we'll start on the home page, go to lessons, and then you can select either enrolled students or visitors. It makes no difference. Then let's select French, for example. Any language doesn't matter. Unit 1. And we'll begin with just lesson 1.1. And you notice up at the top here on the right, you have this symbol right here, this link, which takes you to the printed lesson plan, whereas this picture right here of a teacher in the front of his classroom takes you to the video, such as you're currently watching right now. So I'll open up the printed lesson plan. And this you can either refer to on your computer, or you could print off and have accessible to you in class. So in addition to those printed lesson plans, of course, you have these videos. And the purpose of these videos is to give you a little bit more ample information about what there is to do in each lesson. The first thing you'd want to do before you actually get into lesson 1.1 is to show your students on the classroom screen, if you have access to one, the existence, the location of the ULAT, so www.theulat.com. I would encourage you not to have the students doing the activity on a computer or on a tablet at the same time, simply because you want to maintain their attention, and you're likely to lose it if they're manipulating the website at the same time you are. You'll need to provide them with the username and password, which is appropriate to your school as well if necessary. And then you want to show them how to access the ULAT's lessons, going from the home page all the way through to whatever language you're studying, and then the units, and then show them where the lessons are located within each unit. It'll be good to explain to them the organization of the ULAT's units, going back to the table of contents that shows the 10 units. Explain to them how in the first year there are 5 units, how the first 4 units are primarily oral in nature, although there's some phonics instruction and there's some reading which occurs, but that the actual written work that they will do will not occur until Unit 5. Show them thereafter how to access Lesson 1.2. We'll begin just showing them something in 1.2 before we actually get into 1.1. And in 1.2, show them how the section, first of all, you might want to mention to them that the reason they're only seeing pictures is that in clicking on these pictures, there are hyperlinked sound files, and that they can hear sound describing the picture, and explain why that exists. Is because the ULAT is trying to train them to think on the level of images, going directly to a statement in the target language without causing them to pass first through the grid of printed text or through their native language, of course. That might help them understand why it's all pictures and sound as the ULAT begins. But especially you want to point out to them in 1.2 the red lines, those red lines that separate each section of the lessons. And this is important because as they look for symbolic directions, they will always find the symbolic directions at the top of each section. So after they see a red bar, they know that they're going to change activities, that there'll be a symbolic direction telling them what they're to do next with the images and with the sound in the next section. You might want to point out that symbolic directions always have a yellow bar around them, or border around them, so they'll know what to look for. And you could also mention at this point that every image which has a red line bordering it is a hyperlink to either a sound file or a video clip as well. Okay, now let's go back to lesson 1.1, and at this point you want to explain to them what the purpose of the symbolic directions. And just for your benefit, the reason the symbolic directions exist is because the ULAT is not just for American students to study French or to study Spanish. It's designed for French students to study English, or for a student in Tunisia to learn Russian, conceivably. And so the symbolic directions are there so that no one single language serves as a language of instruction. The lessons, is you go from language to language, you may have already noticed this, are identical in appearance. All that changes initially is the sound file. or are the sound files. It'd be good at the beginning of lesson 1.1 to point out to them that there are certain links that they will not be able to access. Those are intended for you. The link which brings the teacher to this particular video, for example, those links are not available to the student, nor are the links that take the students to the printed lesson plans. So they shouldn't bother trying to click on them. Thereafter, it would be good to show the students the before they even read the explanation of what the symbols are each about. Show the students the symbols and have them try to guess what those symbols are telling them to do. I think they'll find that the symbols are quite graphic, and that the meaning of the symbols is really, it's not at all obscure. It's really quite clear. For example, a parrot suggesting to repeat, or the picture of an ear suggesting listen. Well, once they've had the chance to guess the meanings, give them some time together with you to read through the description of what each symbol is about, and then go back to lesson 1.2. Scrolling to the bottom of the screen, you're going to show them the link that takes them from 1.1 to 1.2. And then once they're in 1.2, have them tell you what activity they are to perform in each of the sections of lesson 1.2. That will show that they understand this concept of the concept of symbolic directions. Well, once you've done that activity, it would be good to show them the action of the navigational buttons. You could either do that within 1.1 or 1.2. That the navigational buttons will take them either back to the home page, to the table of contents for the units, to the table of contents for the last unit which was referenced, and then finally to the lexicon, which provides them with a list of all of the different images linked to sound by part of speech. Having done that activity with them, it would be good now to send them to a computer or provide them access to either a classroom computer or a tablet, or if they don't have access to those in your classroom and you don't have access to a computer lab, have one student at a time come to the front of the room and try to manipulate the ULAT using your computer. And play a game with them. Hopefully they all have access to computers as you're doing this, but have them start at the home page and tell them you want them, for example, to find the symbolic direction which begins the third, so let's say the third section of lesson 3.4, and the first person to find it is to tell you, raise their hand and tell you what it is. And so in essence, it's a race, and this race will give them a chance to start to learn to navigate through the ULAT. At the end of the first round, you might say, show the students who were not successful how it is the person would arrive at the third section of lesson 3.4. And just continue that game until it becomes quite automatic, where the students are very familiar with the navigational buttons as well as with just the organization of the ULAT itself. Okay, well, having accomplished that task, having gone through the lesson 1.1 with them, remind them again how to get to lesson 1.2. That can happen in two ways. They can go to the table of contents for Unit 1 and the navigational button which shows the table of contents for the last lesson. Last lesson accessed would be the means of getting to lesson 1.2. You can also show them or remind them of the existence of the link at the bottom of lesson 1.1, which takes them to the next lesson. Okay, that's it for lesson 1.1.